The morning air in London was crisp as former President Barack Obama stepped out of his black sedan outside Buckingham Palace. He adjusted his navy blue suit jacket and took a deep breath, preparing himself for what would be a routine diplomatic visit. The invitation had come directly from the Queen herself, requesting a private audience to discuss international humanitarian efforts. Obama had visited the palace many times during his presidency, but this felt different somehow. The weight of no longer holding office had given him a new perspective on these formal encounters. He was here not as the leader of the free world, but as a private citizen committed to making a difference. The massive iron gates of Buckingham Palace stood before him like sentinels guarding centuries of British history. Tourist crowds gathered beyond the barriers, some recognizing the familiar figure and pointing excitedly. Camera phones flashed as Obama waved politely, his characteristic smile lighting up his face despite the overcast London sky. As he approached the main entrance, two royal guards stood at attention in their iconic red tunics and tall black bearskin hats. Their faces were stoic, trained to remain expressionless regardless of who passed before them. Obama had always been fascinated by their discipline and dedication to duty. The palace doors opened and a senior aide greeted him warmly. "Mr. President, welcome back to Buckingham Palace. Her Majesty is looking forward to your visit." Obama nodded appreciatively, following the aide through the grand corridors lined with priceless paintings and ornate furnishings. The meeting with the Queen lasted nearly 2 hours. They discussed various global initiatives, from education in developing countries to climate change advocacy. Obama found himself deeply moved by her genuine concern for humanitarian causes, despite her advanced age. Her wisdom and experience provided valuable insights that he knew would influence his future work with the Obama Foundation. As their conversation concluded, the Queen walked him personally to a side entrance, a gesture of respect she rarely extended to visitors. "Your continued dedication to service is truly admirable, Mr. Obama," she said with a warm smile. "I hope our paths will cross again soon." Obama thanked her graciously and made his way toward the exit. The palace corridors seemed quieter now, with most staff attending to their afternoon duties. His security detail maintained a respectful distance, allowing him to absorb the historic atmosphere of this remarkable place. As he neared the main courtyard, Obama noticed the same two royal guards from earlier still standing at their posts. Their unwavering dedication impressed him once again. He had always respected military service, having worked closely with armed forces throughout his presidency. These guards represented the very best of duty and honor. The afternoon sun had broken through the clouds, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. Obama paused for a moment, reflecting on the productive meeting and the potential for future collaboration on causes close to his heart. He felt energized and optimistic about the work ahead. Little did he know that in just a few moments, one of those silent guardians would speak words that would shake him to his very core, words that would challenge everything he thought he knew about his own legacy and impact on the world. The encounter that was about to unfold would leave the former president questioning fundamental beliefs about leadership, service, and the true measure of a life well lived. As Obama walked past the royal guards toward his waiting vehicle, something unexpected happened. The guard on the left, a tall man with piercing blue eyes visible beneath his bearskin hat, stepped slightly forward and cleared his throat softly. "Sir," the guard said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but clear enough for Obama to hear. "Might I have a word?" Obama stopped in his tracks, surprised. Royal guards were famous for their silence and rigid discipline. In all his previous visits to Buckingham Palace, he had never heard one speak while on duty. The security detail tensed slightly, unsure of the protocol for such an unusual situation. "Of course," Obama replied, stepping closer to the guard while maintaining a respectful distance. The afternoon light caught the guard's face, revealing a man in his mid-40s with weathered features that spoke of years of military service. The guard's companion remained perfectly still, eyes fixed straight ahead, maintaining the traditional stoic pose. But Obama could sense the gravity of the moment. Whatever this guard wanted to say, it was important enough for him to break centuries of protocol. "Sir, my name is Sergeant James Mitchell," the guard began. His voice steady but filled with emotion he was clearly struggling to control. "I served 3 tours in Afghanistan before joining the Royal Guard. I've been standing at this post for 7 years now." Obama nodded, his expression growing more serious. He could see the depth of conviction in the man's eyes, the weight of something profound he was about to share. During my time in Afghanistan, Mitchell continued, I witnessed things that changed me forever. I saw families torn apart by conflict, children who had never known peace, communities struggling to survive in impossible conditions. The former president felt his chest tighten. He knew well the burden of military service and the lasting impact of witnessing human suffering. His own decisions during wartime had weighed heavily on his conscience for years. But, sir, Mitchell's voice grew stronger, I also saw something else. I saw hope arrive in places where hope had been forgotten. I saw schools being built where there had been none. I saw medical clinics bringing healing to remote villages. I saw young girls being educated for the first time in their lives. Obama's eyes began to moisten, though he wasn't entirely sure why. Something in the guard's tone suggested this was leading somewhere unexpected, somewhere that would touch the very core of his being. Every single one of those changes, Mitchell said, his voice now trembling slightly. Every school, every clinic, every opportunity for those children happened because of decisions you made, because of policies you championed, because of your unwavering belief that every human life has value, regardless of where they're born. The words hung in the air like a benediction. Obama felt his breathing grow shallow as the full weight of what he was hearing began to settle in his mind. This wasn't just a compliment or casual recognition. This was something deeper, more profound. Sir, Mitchell continued, you need to understand something that perhaps no one has ever told you directly. Your presidency didn't just change America. It didn't just influence global politics. It literally saved lives. Thousands upon thousands of lives that would have been lost without your intervention. Obama's composure began to crack. The guard's words were penetrating defenses he didn't even know he had built around his heart. Years of criticism, political attacks, and second-guessing his own decisions had created layers of doubt that he carried silently. The security detail watched nervously as their protectee appeared to be struggling emotionally. But Obama raised a hand slightly, signaling that he needed to hear whatever else this remarkable man had to say. Sergeant Mitchell's voice grew even more intense as he continued his revelation. Mr. President, there's something specific I need to tell you. Something that happened in a small village called Kargak, about 60 miles northeast of Kandahar. Obama's hands began to tremble slightly. He had made countless decisions about military operations and humanitarian aid during his presidency. But individual village names often blurred together in the overwhelming scope of global responsibility. In 2014, our unit received intel about a planned attack on a school in that village. Mitchell continued, his eyes never leaving Obama's face. It was one of those schools built through your education initiative. 53 children attended that school, all between the ages of 6 and 14, most of them girls. The former president felt his stomach drop. He remembered the broader initiative, the passionate debates in the Situation Room about expanding educational opportunities in conflict zones. But hearing about the specific human impact was overwhelming. The attack was scheduled for a Thursday morning during class time. Mitchell's voice cracked slightly. Intelligence suggested it would involve explosives that would have leveled the entire building. Every child in that school would have died, along with their 3 teachers. Obama closed his eyes briefly, imagining the horror that had been prevented. The faces of his own daughters, Malia and Sasha, flashed through his mind, and he thought about the Afghan parents who sent their children to school that morning, not knowing the danger that awaited them. But sir, Mitchell continued, your administration's rapid response protocols, the ones you personally championed, meant that within 4 hours of receiving that intelligence, we had assets in place to prevent the attack. We captured the perpetrators before they could carry out their plan. Tears were now flowing freely down Obama's cheeks. The weight of leadership had always been enormous, but rarely did he get to see such direct, personal evidence of how his decisions translated into saved lives. Those 53 children went home to their families that night, Mitchell said, his own voice breaking. They grew up, Mr. President. They learned to read and write. Some of them are now teachers themselves. Others became doctors, engineers, community leaders. Obama tried to speak but found his voice caught in his throat. The enormity of what he was hearing was almost too much to process. Throughout his presidency, he had wrestled with difficult decisions, often wondering if he was truly making a difference or simply managing crises. There's more, sir, Mitchell continued, One of those students, a girl named Fatima, who was 8 years old that day, recently graduated from medical school. She sent a letter to the British Embassy asking them to pass along a message. She wanted to thank the American president who made it possible for her to live and learn. The guard reached carefully into his jacket and pulled out a worn envelope. "Sir, I've been carrying this letter for 3 months, hoping I might someday have the chance to give it to you personally." Obama's hand shook as he accepted the envelope. The simple white paper felt impossibly heavy with the weight of its contents. He could see his name written in careful English script on the front, along with words in what appeared to be Dari or Pashto. "She wrote it in both languages," Mitchell explained. "The English translation is inside, but she wanted you to see her native words as well. She said it was important that you understand her gratitude in the language of her heart." Obama stared at the envelope, unable to open it immediately. The reality of what he held in his hands was staggering. This wasn't just a letter. It was proof that his presidency had touched individual lives in ways he had never imagined. "Sir," Mitchell said softly, "in all my years of military service, in all the operations I've been part of, I've never seen anything like the ripple effect of hope that your policies created in places like Afghanistan. You didn't just change politics, you changed destinies." The former president finally looked up at Mitchell, his face streaked with tears. "Sergeant, I don't know how to thank you for this. For telling me this story, for carrying this letter, for helping me understand." His voice trailed off as the full magnitude of the moment continued to wash over him. With trembling fingers, Obama carefully opened the envelope that Sergeant Mitchell had given him. The paper inside was delicate, and he could see it had been folded and refolded many times, as if the writer had struggled with what to say, or had treasured it before sending it on its journey. The letter began in flowing script that he assumed was Dari, followed by an English translation written in careful, precise handwriting. As his eyes moved across the words, Obama felt his composure completely dissolve. "Dear Mr. President Obama," the letter began. "My name is Dr. Fatima Ahmadi. I am 22 years old, and I recently graduated from Kabul Medical University. I am writing to tell you about a day that changed my life forever, though I did not understand its importance until many years later." Obama's voice caught in his throat as he continued reading silently, but Mitchell seemed to understand his struggle. "Would you like me to read it aloud, sir?" the guard asked gently. Obama nodded, unable to trust his own voice. He handed the letter back to Mitchell, who cleared his throat and continued in a respectful tone. "When I was 8 years old, I attended a small school in my village of Kargak. It was the first school in our area that allowed girls to learn alongside boys. My father was very brave to send me there because many people in our village thought girls should not be educated." Mitchell paused, glancing at Obama, who was now leaning against the palace wall for support, overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the moment. "On what should have been a normal Thursday morning, soldiers came to our school very quickly and told us we had to leave immediately. We were scared, but the soldiers were kind. They helped us gather our books and walked us safely home. We did not understand why." Obama closed his eyes, remembering the countless briefings about such operations, never knowing the faces behind the statistics. Later, we learned that bad people had planned to hurt our school, to hurt us children, but the soldiers stopped them. They saved us. For many years, I did not know who sent those soldiers or why they cared about children like me in a faraway village. Mitchell's voice began to shake slightly as he continued reading. "When I grew older, I learned about America and about you, Mr. President. I learned that you believed children everywhere deserve the chance to learn, even children like me in Afghanistan. I learned that you made it possible for schools to be built in places where there had been none. I learned that you sent brave soldiers not just to fight, but to protect." Obama was now sobbing openly, no longer trying to maintain the composure expected of a former president. The raw humanity of the letter was breaking down every emotional barrier he had constructed during his years in office. "Because I lived, because I was able to continue learning, I was able to study hard and earn a scholarship to university. Because of that Thursday when soldiers saved my school, I am now a doctor. I will spend my life saving other people just as you saved me." Mitchell had to pause in his reading, clearly moved by the words himself. The other guard maintained his rigid posture, but Obama could see tears streaming down his face as well. "Mr. President, I want you to know that every patient I treat, every life I save, every sick child I help to heal, is a continuation of the kindness you showed to a little girl you never met in a village whose name you probably do not remember. The weight of these words hit Obama like a physical force. The idea that his abstract policy decisions had created this direct line of healing and hope was overwhelming. I have named my newborn daughter Hope, in honor of what you gave to me, and to so many others. She will grow up knowing that kindness can travel across oceans, that leadership means caring for people you will never meet, and that one person's decisions can echo through generations. Obama collapsed onto a nearby bench, his entire body shaking with the intensity of his emotional response. In 8 years of presidency, through all the criticism and challenges, he had never received such direct personal evidence of the positive impact of his service. "Sir," Mitchell said softly, folding the letter carefully, "this is just one story. There are thousands more like it." As Obama sat on the bench trying to process the overwhelming emotions coursing through him, Sergeant Mitchell remained standing at attention, but his expression had softened considerably from the stoic mask Royal Guards typically wore. "Sir," Mitchell continued gently, "I need to tell you something else, something about why I chose to break protocol today to share this with you." Obama looked up through his tears, still clutching the letter from Dr. Fatima. He wasn't sure he could handle any more emotional revelations, but something in Mitchell's tone suggested this was equally important. 3 weeks ago, I was granted leave to visit my sister in Scotland. She's a teacher there, works with refugee children who've come to the UK from various conflict zones. When I told her I was stationed at Buckingham Palace, she asked me if I'd ever met any world leaders. Mitchell paused, seeming to gather his courage for what came next. I mentioned that I'd seen you during your visits, and her entire demeanor changed. She started crying right there in her kitchen, and I couldn't understand why. Then she told me about a student she'd had 5 years ago, a young man named Ahmad who had fled Afghanistan with his family. Obama's attention sharpened despite his emotional state. The connections Mitchell was drawing seemed impossibly meaningful. Ahmad was 15 when he arrived in Scotland, traumatized by what he'd experienced in his homeland. He spoke very little English and was struggling terribly in school. My sister worked with him every day after classes, trying to help him adjust. The guard's voice grew more intense as he continued. One day Ahmad brought a photo to show my sister. It was a picture of him as a small child standing in front of a school building. He explained through broken English and hand gestures that this school had been built by Americans, that it was where he first learned to read. Obama felt his breath catch. The coincidences were becoming almost too powerful to believe. Ahmad told my sister that the school had been attacked when he was older, but that American soldiers had helped rebuild it stronger than before. He said that the education he received there was what gave him the courage to dream of a better life, to believe that he could escape the violence and build a future. Mitchell reached into his other pocket and pulled out a small photograph. Clearly worn from being handled many times, "Sir, Ahmad gave this photo to my sister when he graduated last year with top honors. He's now studying engineering at university, planning to return to Afghanistan someday to help rebuild his country. He asked my sister to somehow get this to the American president, who had made his education possible." Obama stared at the photograph Mitchell extended to him. It showed a young Afghan boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, standing proudly in front of a simple but well-built school building. Behind him, other children were visible, playing in a courtyard that looked safe and welcoming. "The back of the photo," Mitchell said softly. Obama turned the photograph over. In careful English writing, he read, "For President Obama, this is where my dreams began. Thank you for believing in children like me. Ahmad Hassan, Aberdeen, Scotland, 2023. The former president stared at the photo for a long time, seeing not just one child but representing thousands of young people whose lives had been touched by policies and decisions made in rooms far from their daily reality. "Sergeant Mitchell," Obama finally managed to say, his voice hoarse with emotion, "in all my years in politics, in all my time as president, I've never been given such a gift. To see the actual faces, to hold these tangible connections between policy and human life." He trailed off, overwhelmed by the responsibility and privilege of what he was experiencing. "Sir," Mitchell said, "I've been a soldier for most of my adult life. I've served under multiple commanders, followed orders from many leaders, but I've never seen the kind of ripple effect that your leadership created. It wasn't just about military strategy or political gain. It was about recognizing the humanity in people that others had written off." Obama stood up slowly, still holding both the letter and the photograph. His security detail had maintained their distance, sensing that this was a moment that transcended normal protocol. "There's one more thing, sir," Mitchell said, and Obama wondered how his heart could possibly handle any additional revelations. Sergeant Mitchell's final revelation came with a weight that seemed to transform the very air around them. He reached into his jacket one last time and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook that looked well-worn and carefully maintained. "Sir, this belongs to my unit," Mitchell explained, his voice filled with reverence. "For the past 8 years, every soldier who served in Afghanistan under your administration and later joined the Royal Guard has contributed to this book. It contains the names and stories of every person we personally witnessed being saved or helped because of your policies." Obama's hands shook as Mitchell placed the notebook in his palms. The leather was soft with age and handling, and he could feel the weight of the pages within. "There are 847 names in that book, sir. Each one represents a real person whose life was directly changed by decisions you made. Each entry includes details about who they were, how they were helped, and what they've accomplished since." As Obama opened the notebook, he saw page after page of handwritten entries in different styles and languages. Some were in English, others in various scripts he didn't recognize, but many had translations attached. The care and attention that had gone into documenting these stories was evident in every line. "Dr. Fatima's story is on page 127, Mitchell said softly. "Ahmad's story is on page 203, but sir, every single page represents someone's child, someone's hope, someone's future that exists because you believed in the power of compassion over conflict." Obama read a few entries randomly, each one hitting him like a gentle but powerful wave. "A teacher who started a school for orphans, a young man who became a translator and helped other refugees, a woman who learned to read at age 35 and now runs a community clinic. Story after story of lives transformed, hope restored, futures made possible. We started this book," Mitchell continued, "because we realized that soldiers like us were the bridge between your vision and its implementation. We saw firsthand how policy became practice, how your belief in human dignity translated into real protection for real people." Tears were flowing down Obama's face again, but they felt different now. These weren't tears of overwhelming emotion alone, but of profound understanding and gratitude. "Sergeant Mitchell," Obama said, closing the notebook gently, "I spent 8 years in the Oval Office making decisions that kept me awake at night. I questioned every choice, wondered if I was truly making a difference or just managing problems. I left office carrying the weight of every criticism, every failure, every life I couldn't save." He paused, looking around at the grandeur of Buckingham Palace, then back at this remarkable soldier who had just given him an incredible gift. "Today, you've shown me something I never could have seen from the White House. You've shown me that leadership isn't just about the decisions you make in the moment, but about the seeds of hope those decisions plant in places you'll never visit. In lives you'll never directly touch," Mitchell nodded, understanding the profound shift that was taking place in the former president's understanding of his own legacy. "Sir, every person whose name is in that book would want you to know one thing. You didn't just serve as their president. You served as their champion, their protector, their bridge to a better future. The work you did created ripples that will continue for generations." Obama stood in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace, holding physical proof that his presidency had created a web of positive change far beyond anything he had imagined. The criticisms and political battles seemed smaller somehow, overwhelmed by the magnitude of actual human impact he now held in his hands. "Sergeant, how do I thank you for this? How do I express my gratitude for what you've given me today?" Mitchell smiled, the first break in his military bearing since the conversation began. "Sir, you continue doing what you're doing. You keep fighting for education, for hope, for the belief that every person matters, because there are more Fatimas and Ahmads out there, waiting for someone to believe in them the way you believed in these." As Obama walked toward his car, carrying the letter, the photograph, and the notebook, he felt transformed. The weight of leadership would always be heavy, but now it was balanced by the knowledge that every difficult decision, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt had contributed to something beautiful and lasting in the world. The Royal Guard had given him far more than stories. He had given him the understanding that true leadership extends far beyond politics, far beyond criticism, far beyond the immediate moment. It extends into hearts and minds and futures that stretch across oceans and generations. Obama knew he would never be the same.